name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be going over my March wrap-up. To share with you guys today, so we're going to jump right on into it. The first book I read this month was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. This right here is the Barnes & Noble Classics edition. This actually has the first 3 books in the Wrinkle in Time quintet. I only read the first one because I wanted to read it before I took my little sister to see the movie. This was one that I had definitely read before in my childhood, but it has been at least 10-15 years since I have read it, and so I wanted to make sure it was something I still really liked, and I did. I really like this book. The characterization is really good. The setting is amazing. It was one of the first books I remember reading that had like a sci-fi element to it. This follows our main character of Meg and her little brother Charles Wallace and their friend Calvin, and they end up going on this fantastical adventure to help get Meg's father back after he has disappeared. While I really like this book, and I remember just having so many good feelings for it, the movie let me down a little bit. I did like some of the directions that they were going, but some of the nuances between the book and the movie just did not mesh up, and I feel they left out some of those character relationships between each other that I really enjoyed while I was reading this book. So this book got 4 out of 5 stars. If I was going to rate the movie, I would say maybe 2.5 out of 5. The next book I read this month was Gemini Keeps Capricorn. It is by Anita Sunday, and it is the 3rd in the Signs of Love series, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. This is a series that I have absolutely been in love with. It is a male-male romance series. These stories for me don't usually have the typical male-male romance. They do have LGBTQ romances because not all of the guys are strictly gay. Some are bi, some are demisexual. And so it follows these 2 main guys who actually go to college together. One is an RA in the dorm and the other one lives in the dorm. And so they are sort of dealing with their feelings based on the fact that they cannot actually have a relationship because of the whole RA situation. They are not allowed to have a relationship with the students that they are sort of in charge of. I really like Anita Sunday's writing style as well as her characterization. These characters always feel completely real to me. They're very well-rounded, and I love the relationships they have with each other. Some of her books go from like when they meet to a relationship. Some of them go from like enemies to a relationship, and then this one here went from like friends to a relationship, and I absolutely love this. I do not see another one up on Goodreads yet, but I would completely read more of these books in this series. I absolutely love them. The next book I read this month was The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. This I did give a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I liked this book. It is a witch book where there were 3 sisters who were drowned centuries ago in this town for being witches, and every year they come back, take over the bodies of some of the girls that are there, and then to take their revenge, they drown some of the boys. I felt that this was just a little bit predictable. I really love the writing style, and I believe this was a debut novel, so if it is, I am very much looking forward to more from this author. I just found myself guessing all of the sort of twists as they were coming at me, and the ending was a little flat for me. I guess it was more because I was hoping something else was going to happen, but I really did enjoy going through the story. It was a very quick read, and if you like witch novels, I do think this was a very good YA take on them. And then we have Fence issue 4. This is by C.S. Picot and Joanna the Mad, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. So far, this comic series has been completely blowing everything out of the water. 5 stars every single time around. These are comic issues, so they are very short. I'm hoping they get a bind-up of this eventually because there are supposed to be at least 5 issues coming out so far, so we should have another one out in, I believe, either the end of March, which means in my mail it should be coming around April. But this follows 2 of our main characters, Nicholas and Seiji, who go to this private school, and they are trying to get on the fencing squad there. We are currently in the midst of their competition for the school's team, where they're going to be pairing off against each other so that they can eventually whittle it down to see who will actually be on the fencing team. I absolutely love the art style of this, as well as the characterization. Even for such few pages, it is just amazing. I absolutely love the way that this makes me feel. I'm so involved with these characters, and I just cannot wait for more. And then the next book I read this month was Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I received this as an ARC from my bookstore. I work at Barnes & Noble, and every so often we do receive advanced reader copies that we can take home and read if we think it's something that we are interested in, because then if we do like it, it's something we might recommend to a customer. I first picked this up because of the gorgeous cover. It caught my eye right away. And the concept sounded interesting. So these are our two main characters. They end up meeting, and they say it is a less meet cute and more a collision of unbearable awkwardness. I do think that is quite accurate for this book. There were some very awkward moments in here. And then they build up a relationship based on text. So there's not as much interacting together in person, face to face. I did like this. However, I found at least the very beginning a little tedious to get through. This is a debut novel, and I feel like, at least for me personally, the beginning threw me off a little bit. It starts off very present day. Let me sort of explain this. So our main character of Penny is currently in college, as in she just got accepted. She's a freshman, so she's probably around 18. I haven't been to college in a while, so I believe it is a little bit different, but she uses a lot of like the speak and the slang that they use nowadays. There was a lot of like bae and AF, and they had a lot of present sort of pop culture-y sort of terms. I just feel, at least for me personally, the very beginning was very heavy with that. And so it threw me off. It took me out of the story because everything was so in my face that it was supposed to be happening in present day. I haven't felt that way with very many other stories, especially ones that even were written in the past. I haven't felt like, oh, this is obviously from the 1970s or something like that. But this one, it was just a little bit heavy with that sort of dialogue at the very beginning. I do think they toned it down a little bit as I went through, and I was very interested in these characters. This has a little bit of like that dysfunctional family, relying on friends more narrative, and I did really, really enjoy that part. I don't think I would necessarily classify this as a romance either, because there's not a whole bunch of that. I do wish I would have had a little bit more of that, because I assumed that this was a romance when I first picked it up, and while there is a little bit, I do believe it's more of a coming-of-age story, and so I did enjoy it. It was just not exactly what I was expecting. And then I read A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. This is the first in the Charlotte Holmes trilogy, except for I believe that they have a 4th book listed on Goodreads, so maybe it's just going to be a series now. This one I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars to. I was actually a little bit surprised at how much I enjoyed this. This is a story that is almost a reimagining of Sherlock Holmes, except for the fact that the characters in this story are descendants of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, so it's not like they never existed. So we have two main characters here, Charlotte Holmes and then Jamie Watson. Jamie Watson is our narrator, almost like John Watson was for Sherlock Holmes. They write everything down, and I really, really enjoyed this book. This first one here follows a sort of case that they take on based on the fact that Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson are sort of being framed for a murder that happens at their boarding school. I really enjoyed this. It had a lot of the elements of finding the clues for the case and building everything together and connecting the dots. I really did enjoy how Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson interact. They're not one-dimensional characters. It was very, very enjoyable. And if you like Sherlock Holmes or any of like the sort of TV shows or movies that are out, you'll probably like this one. And then I also read The Last of August by Brittany Cavallaro. This is the second book in the Charlotte Holmes trilogy, and I gave this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. This one I did not like very much, which is a little sad because I read this one immediately after I read the first one because I was so excited about these books. This one followed the summer vacation after what had happened in the events of the first book, and I don't know, this one completely fell flat. The case they were working on was confusing. They weren't making very many connections, or if Charlotte was, she was not telling Jamie for him to write it down. The ending, the last like 20 pages had the entire ending in there, and it was so disconnected from the rest of the story. I had no idea what was happening. They had a twist that happened that came completely out of nowhere with no explanation. I don't know what was happening. I don't even know how to feel about this one. I did like the fact that they gave us a little bit of Charlotte's perspective in this, based on the fact that Jamie couldn't write a few chapters or he needed more details on it, so she did take over. And I did like seeing into her head as well as his, because there were a lot of times where I had no idea what she's supposed to be feeling or doing because we were only getting Jamie's perspective. I feel like if they would have taken the time to explain the ending and drag it out a little bit more so that it wasn't so bam, 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 things happening, and then all of a sudden the story was over, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. I actually did pick up the third book, The Case for Jamie, this month in March, and I was going to read it immediately after this one. I finished this one a few days ago, and I haven't been able to pick up any other books since, because I was just a little disappointed in this. This was not as good as the first one, and now I'm a little bit hesitant to see how the third one is going to be. I really do want to read that, so it will probably still be on my TBR for April, but this is the first time it's happened where I had a book that I read and really, really loved, and then the sequel, I didn't. And I don't know if this is a case of it being a sequel, and so it's going to be a little bit worse than normal, but from going from a 4.5 stars to a 2.5 stars, this one really let me down. And so those were all the books that I read in March. If you guys liked this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Leave me a comment down below letting me know what you guys read this month. I am very interested to hear from you guys. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I have new videos up every Monday and Thursday, so I will see you then. Bye!